Welcome back to Old Coin Adventures. This looks like an ordinary 10-cent coin, but the one I'm holding in my hand right now could be hiding a detail that changes everything. At first glance, there's nothing special about this 1980 Roosevelt dime. But look a little closer, because certain 1980 dimes can be worth far more than 10 cents. And some unusual examples have actually sold for serious money. So before you dismiss a coin like this, check the date, check the mint mark, and most importantly, check for the detail that collectors know to look for. Because in this video, I'm going to show you exactly what can make a 1980 Roosevelt dime valuable, how much one could actually be worth, and where you can sell it if you discover that yours is one of the rare ones. And by the end, you may never look at an old dime the same way again. The first thing you need to understand about the 1980 Roosevelt dime is that the date alone does not make this coin rare. That might sound disappointing, but actually, that's where the real story begins. Because when collectors examine a coin like this, they aren't simply asking how old it is. They're asking what happened to it before it ever reached someone's pocket. And that's a completely different way of looking at a coin. Take a normal 1980 Roosevelt dime. Millions of coins were produced during this era. So finding the date itself isn't enough to make your heart skip a beat. But now imagine finding one with something that shouldn't be there. A design element that appears doubled. A rim that doesn't look normal. A strange area of missing metal. A coin that appears to have been struck incorrectly. That's when a simple 10-cent piece can become much more interesting. And this is exactly why you should never inspect a coin by looking at only one detail. Start with the date. Look closely at every digit. Then move toward the mint mark. Check its shape, its position, and the metal surrounding it. Don't rush this part. Use a bright light and, if possible, some magnification. Because the human eye can easily miss small differences on a coin this size. Now turn the dime over. Look at the torch in the center. Look at the lettering. Look at the olive and oak branches. Then examine the rim. You're not looking for scratches or random damage. You're looking for something that appears to be part of the striking process itself. And this distinction is extremely important. A coin can be damaged after leaving the mint and still look incredibly strange. It could have been hit by another coin. It could have been scraped against a hard surface. It could have been exposed to chemicals. It could have spent years in harsh conditions. All of these things can create unusual appearances. But collectors are interested in something different. They want to know whether the unusual feature was created while the coin was being made. That's what can turn an ordinary-looking dime into a genuine mint error candidate. And there is another reason you should be careful. The internet is filled with coins listed for huge amounts of money. But a listing price is not the same thing as a confirmed sale. Anyone can put a price tag on a coin. The real question is, did someone actually pay it? That's why documented auction results are so important. And when we look at actual 1980 Roosevelt dime errors, we can see just how much the difference matters. For example, a 1980p Roosevelt dime struck 65% off-center, graded MS-64, sold at a Stack's Bowers auction in June 2024 for $65. Another 1980p example with a missing obverse-clad layer sold through Heritage Auctions for $56. These aren't ordinary circulated dimes. They're examples of coins with specific characteristics that collectors considered worth paying for. And there's an even more interesting example. A 1980p Roosevelt dime with a partial collar and obverse blockage. That coin was sold by Heritage Auctions in November 2020 for $228. Now think about that. A coin with a face value of 10 cents can become a completely different collectible when the right mint-made error is present. But here's the catch. That does not mean every 1980 dime is worth $228. And it certainly doesn't mean every strange-looking dime is a valuable error. The exact error, the condition, the mint, the grade, and the authenticity all matter. So before you start thinking about selling your coin, there is one more side of this story you need to understand. Because sometimes, the most important clue isn't on the front of the dime at all. It's hiding on the reverse. And that's where we're going next. Now turn that 1980 Roosevelt dime over and take a second look. This is where I want you to forget everything you normally do when checking pocket change. Don't just look at the coin. Study it. Start with the torch. Look at the surrounding lettering. Move toward the branches. Then slowly follow the rim around the entire coin. You're searching for something that doesn't fit. Something that looks different from a normal example. But remember, strange does not automatically mean rare. That is one of the biggest mistakes new collectors make. A damaged coin can look dramatic. A genuine mint error can look subtle. Sometimes the most important difference is barely noticeable until you compare the coin with a normal example. That's why comparison is so powerful. Put your 1980 dime next to another Roosevelt dime. Use the same lighting. Look at the same area on both coins. Compare the lettering. Compare the rim. Compare the design. And if one coin has something that the other doesn't, that's when you start asking questions. Was the feature created during striking? Could it have happened after the coin entered circulation? Does the metal flow make sense? Does the shape of the feature appear raised, recessed, or displaced? These questions can help separate a real mint error from ordinary damage. And if you believe you've found something important, don't clean the coin. Don't polish it. Don't scrape it. And definitely don't try to make it look newer. Original surfaces can be important to collectors. Instead, take clear photographs. Take one photograph of the entire obverse, one of the entire reverse. Then take close-ups of the area that looks unusual. If you have a digital scale, you can also check the weight. Weight alone cannot prove that your dime is an error. But combined with other evidence, it can give you another useful clue. And if the coin still looks unusual after comparison, that's when professional evaluation becomes worthwhile. A reputable coin dealer can be a starting point. A professional grading service can provide authentication and a grade. And if the coin turns out to be a significant mint error, an established auction company may also be an option. But before you sell anything, find out exactly what you have. Because the value of a 1980 Roosevelt dime can vary enormously. A normal circulated 1980D example, for instance, can be worth only a small amount above face value, while high-grade examples can bring considerably more. NGC's current guide lists circulated 1980D examples around $7,000 to $9,000, while pristine examples can reach much higher levels depending on grade. And then you have the error coins. That's where the numbers can change. We've already seen documented examples. A 1980 P off-center example sold for $65. A missing clad layer example sold for $8,500. And the more dramatic partial collar and obverse blockage example reached $11,000 at auction. So if your coin looks unusual, don't immediately assume it's worth hundreds of dollars. But don't immediately assume it's worthless either. Investigate it, compare it, document it, and if necessary, have it authenticated. Because the difference between a normal dime and a collectible error can sometimes be just one tiny detail. And that brings us back to the coin in front of you. Look at the date again. Look at the mint mark. Look at the torch. Look at the lettering. Look at the rim. Then compare every suspicious feature with a normal Roosevelt dime. If everything matches, you may simply have a normal 1980 dime. And that's perfectly fine. But if something clearly doesn't match, don't ignore it. That could be the part of the coin's story that matters most. And remember, the biggest mistake you can make with an unusual coin is selling it before you know what it is. Get a second opinion. Check documented auction results. And only then decide whether selling makes sense. Because a 10-cent coin doesn't have to look spectacular to deserve your attention. Sometimes, the coin that looks completely ordinary is the one that makes you look twice. This is Old Coin Adventures. And if you have an old Roosevelt dime sitting in your collection, go check it. You might discover something hiding in plain sight.